have a business that's called Flourish Wellness Consulting. And what I've done a lot is helping women with their body image, self-image, and self-care. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also a health and wellness coach. So these are some things I'm very passionate about, is that if we take care of our physical and mental and emotional needs, everything impacts everything, right? So the physical and emotional needs impact your physical, and the physical impacts the emotional and mental, right? So today we're going to talk about being stressed out. Now, just those words, stressed out. How many people have said that in your head to yourself before? I'm so stressed, or I'm stressed out. I can't handle this. I've got so much going on. So for all of us, stress is a very real thing in the world that we live in. When you think about everything that everyone has going on, you know, we've got family, we've got responsibilities with our church or our kids, you know, all of the things that can add stressors, work responsibilities. The economy causes people stress. Psychological things that are happening, maybe if you're having some problems with depression or anxiety, that can cause stress. So being stressed out is a very common thing, right? Would you say that a lot of people have felt stressed out before? So do we have any control over being stressed? What do you guys think? You're free to comment. So what control do we have over being stressed, do you think?
It depends on where you're coming from. We don't have control over the things that are stressing us out, but we totally have control over what we do with the things that come at us.
Okay, so we don't have control on what comes in that's a stressor, but we do have control on the way we perceive it, right? On the way we perceive that stressor. So today we're actually going to be talking about why we're stressed out, first of all. Why do we care that we're stressed out? How we can be resilient to stress, and some different ways that we can cope with stress. And I'm actually going to give you guys 5 steps that you can go home and you can use on a regular basis to help you when you're anxious and stressed out, okay? So let's start with the definition of stress. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from an adverse or demanding circumstances. It is also explained as pressure or tension that's exerted on a material object. So you can think about that there was stress on the tree, had some stress on it, or they put stress on the building. You know, there's that mental, emotional exertion. So when we're having stress, we're actually, it's from demanding circumstances in our lives, right? Whatever it might be, kids, family, whatever is going on. But the thing that I want you guys to be aware of is stress can either be perceived or it can be an actual demand. So there could be an actual demand, like someone calls you up and says, can you come bring over a casserole tonight? And you're like, oh, I don't even have time to pick up my kids from school, but okay, I'll do that on top of this. It could be a demand of something more put on your plate, right? We all talk about how full is our plate, what do we already have going on, and then when something else comes up, how much that adds to that feeling of stress. But stress can be either perceived or actual. So what do you think the difference is with that? Like a perceived stress versus an actual stress? Anybody have an idea? So we all have perceptions, right? And our perception is our reality, right? So a lot of times in mental health, we talk about changing our perceptions. If we change our perceptions, we change our reality. And I love the comment in the back of actually we can change stress levels by the way we look at it, okay? So if we believe we can't handle demands, that's when we start feeling that stress. It's the same stress. When we have that perception, I cannot handle this, this is too much for me, I'm going to crack, all those thoughts that we have, that's when it becomes more physically stressful for us and causes a lot of physical and mental problems. So I called this slide the tiger tails, okay? So do you guys remember, when back in the Ice Age, you don't remember it, but back in the Ice Age, when there was an actual threat to people, like say a tiger, a saber-toothed tiger was running after you, we have a stress response for a reason. And what is that reason, do you think? Why would we need a stress response when we see this beautiful thing in front of us? What's that? Survival. Just to survive, right? We want to get out of his way. We don't want to be eaten by, we don't want to be his lunch, right? So we want to get out of his way. So we actually, our stress response is a protection to us. It's there to keep us safe. It's there to help us. But again, is there an actual tiger? Or do I think it's a tiger and it's not a tiger? Sometimes I use with my clients, I say, what if I told you that behind this door there was a tiger? And they say, oh, I'd run really fast. And then I say, but what if you open the door and it's a stuffed animal tiger? And they're like, well, that's no big deal. I said, a lot of the times the things that we're thinking of are kind of like a stuffed animal tiger that we're fearing as if it's running after us. So the way we do, when we have stressors, we actually have a trigger to our stressor, then we have our reaction to our stressor, then we have a physical sensation from the stressor. So a trigger to the stressor could be something like someone asked me to do something that I already feel like I have way too much going on. What's something else that maybe would trigger you guys feeling stressed? What do you think? Job interview. So something that you're not sure how it's going to turn out. It might be demanding kind of a thing. Yeah. So anytime that there's something that you're not sure how it's going to go and you have a worry with it, that can be a trigger to stress, right? Or anxiety. We're going to talk about the difference between stress and anxiety, but they're like married to each other, basically. So we get into what's called a stress loop. Has anyone ever heard of the anxiety or stress loop? So we think a negative thought. We have a trigger, right? Someone asked you to do something. You have a job interview. You have, 3 things that are required of you to do tonight. And you start feeling that stress. And you get yourself into this loop where you can't stop thinking about it. Worry, worry, worry. Like I had this where I had so many demands on my time that I couldn't get myself out of that loop of how am I going to get everything done that I have to do, right? And then I was asked to do one extra thing, which was, can you do this service activity for church? And I went, ah! And then my mind said, it's too much. You're telling me I have to do more. You're going to break me. All these thoughts, and I was putting it on other people, right? So let's talk about, we talked about the definition of stress. This is actually the definition of anxiety, okay? The definition of anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So, like you said, if I have a job interview, if I'm nervous about my kids going to school, if I'm nervous about there was an accident on the road, or how's the election going to turn out? There's just so many different things we don't know what the outcome's going to be, and so in our head, what do? What do we create in our head? Anyway, we create thoughts, right? And when it's anxiety, we're thinking usually the worst case scenario. What are all the things that could possibly go wrong? And it's your brain trying to protect you. Like, if this goes wrong, this goes wrong, this goes wrong. Okay, how can I get out of this? Because all these things could go wrong. So have you guys heard of fight, flight, or freeze? Have you heard of that before? So that, again, is our brain. Its response to a threat is it's going to either, when you feel stressed out, do you get irritable? Anyone get irritable or angry? Sometimes do you want to just say, I quit, I'm done? So it's that fight, flight, or freeze. Has anyone ever felt kind of in a numb state, like I just can't keep going? There's just too much on my plate. Yeah, so it's natural for our brains to do that, to go to that place, but we can actually help our brains get out of doing it over and over and over again, right? So we have the worry, we have the stressor, but we can actually stop it here before it goes around again. Does that make sense? So talking about the difference between stress and anxiety, stress is a response to a threat. Anxiety is a reaction to a stressor, and the reaction may be out of proportion to the impact of the actual event. Can anyone think of an example of this? Okay, I have an example. So I had an 11-year-old little girl that I was working with, and she had experienced some bullying in her life, and so she had a lot of anxiety about kids at school. She had a lot of anxiety that they all hated her, that they were out to get her, and so then she was fearful at home, and she felt like they were going to actually come and knock on the door at home and come and get her and beat her up and do mean things to her. So she had, that one trigger to the anxiety, which was kids that had bullied her, kind of been mean to her. And then she took it and put it into, okay, this is going to happen at home too. And she actually took it into, so now when I'm in junior high, I can't go to junior high because it'll be way worse than anything else was. Has anyone ever done that before? Like made it into the worst case scenario it could possibly be? Even though it hasn't happened yet, she won't be in junior high for 2 more years. But she's already saying everything that's happened to me in the past is going to be times 10 worse, right? I'm going to have a lot more bullying. I'm going to have kids that come and find me at my house. And she just was, there's a lot of fear, right? So anxiety, fear is fed on anxiety. So when you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling a lot of fear. You're feeling trapped. You're feeling like you can't get out of it. So, but it's actually disproportionate, our reaction. When we have the anxiety, our reaction is disproportionate to what the actual event is. So like say you saw something on TV that was, there was a car accident, and then you get in your car and you're like, I'm gonna get in an accident, everybody's out to get me, I can't, if I get to the stop sign, that guy behind me is probably gonna hit me in the back, and then I'm gonna have to be in the hospital, I won't be able to work for, and it's this anxiety loop, this worry that we keep going, all the possible things that could go wrong.